Right, gentlemen, ladies, I have started the recording. So if you could please sign in on the chat with your name and the team that you're representing.
Ian, you need to meet Megas.
Am I in?
You're in, mate.
Oh, that's a worry. I was hoping it wouldn't, and I could just carry on watching the football. But I'm here. How are you, Dave? You all right?
I'm all right. Any score, mate?
I'm not watching the football, mate. I hate Chelsea.
Supporting Real Madrid.
No, I don't. I honestly don't care who it is. It's not Leeds, so I don't give a shit who it is, mate. If I'm honest, it's Leeds or nothing. Leeds reserves, perhaps. I was just going to work then with 150.
That's why we split into two.
Yeah, we were.
I can only see you. I don't know who else is on or what's happening.
We got 72 on so far.
Yeah, 72 in.
What's the number? Did I read 150 somewhere or something?
What, clubs? Yeah.
No, teams that are going to be here tonight.
No, yeah, but we've already done half of them.
Done 100.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You're in the elite band.
I think you'll find that's not the case.
Okay, for newcomers that have just come in, I've got 76 participants and 42 messages in the chat. So if you've come in since, can you please sign in on the chat with your name and the team that you're representing, please? Right, I've got 87 now. Technically, it should be 88. Oh, we've got 88. Excellent. Right, so I've got 88 in the room. I've got 72 messages, so 8 of those are committee. If you haven't yet signed in, can you please put your name and the team you're representing into the chat? I've put everyone on mute. I thought I put everyone on mute. No, I put everyone on mute. If you have any questions at any point, can you please put them into the chat and we will trail through them all once Dave has finished his bit. If there's anything we miss, feel free to message us either on the secretary account or individually, preferably the secretary account, please. And we'll come back to you or put general answers. We are recording the meeting, so if you don't want to be recorded, please turn your camera off. And the meeting will be posted up onto YouTube just so that you can show anyone else in the club, or if you're here representing a captain who couldn't make it, you can point them to it. That should be up in the next couple of days, so you can go back through anything. So if you miss anything but you think it was there, you'll probably be able to pick it up on the video at a later stage. Right, we're almost there. I've got 78 signed in.
79. One more.
Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Dave. I will keep the chat open and make a note of all the questions, and we'll go back through those once we've done the main notes. So thank you very much for turning up, and I'm going to hand you over to David Warren.
Thanks for everybody for joining. Generally, these affairs are quite short, as we normally talk about changing rules. However, we've got some new clubs in this year, so I'm going to go through some of the highlights of what the captains should expect. We haven't got any rule for Chiro League players, captains from last year or the year before. We haven't got any rule changes, so. So the games, all games will start between weeks 1 and 16 will start at 12:30. Weeks 17 and 18 will start at 12. So for the win-lose games, it's 3 hours and 10 minutes per innings with a 30-minute interval. So it should finish around 7:30, 7:20. The win-lose draw games, the 53rd over must start within 3 hours, 10 minutes of the start of the game. The over rate is calculated at 3 minutes 30 seconds per over. Obviously, if there is rain interruption, then the umpires will recalculate the finish time. There's a 30-yard circle required. The rain rules DLS calculator will be on the laptops, and you'll be able to, the scorers be able to calculate and work out with the umpires where we are. You are required to put up a DLS score as you go along. Obviously, some scoreboards don't have that as on an electronic scoreboard, so you need to have some facility where you can put up that DLS score as the game progresses if rain has interrupted. The home team is responsible for supplying all of the match balls. The match ball must be a Tiflex Buckingham brand. You will need at least 3 new match balls at every home game. If you lose a match ball or the match ball needs to be replaced within the first 5 overs, then a new ball is required. You will need to supply a number of spares for the game. 6 is usually a box full is usually recommended, and they should be at various degrees of wear so that they can be replaced during the innings. They should also be Buckingham balls. However, as some clubs wouldn't have played with them last year, the Hampton balls that the OCA clubs used last year will be allowed until such time that you'll have a box of spare Buckingham balls. Umpires you need to pay the umpire before the game. There will be appointed umpires in Division 1 to 3, and Tier 4 and 5. They'll be the panel umpires or club umpires. If you do not supply a club umpire or a panel umpire, there is a 5-point deduction. The umpire must receive the match balls before the game with a team sheet indicating underage players. The team sheets can be an OCA card. We are trying to obtain some of these, and if we get them in time, we'll get them out before the start of the season. If not, anything that you can write on will be good enough to start the season. Scorers. So it is compulsory to have a scorer in Division 1 to 3. At the moment, with COVID rules, we will only require the home team to provide that scorer. However, if the away team scorer wants to score and be at the game, then as long as they're following the government guidelines on isolation, that is good enough with us. So Divisions 4 and 5, we would like you to have a scorer there, and obviously this same rule applies for the away team scorer. ECB guidelines must be followed for any COVID rules. We will provide an update to the captains and clubs, hopefully sometime next week before the season starts. We're leaving it as late as possible, just in case the government change their mind on anything. Result reporting. The captain is responsible. A member of the home club is responsible for registering the match result by 10 p.m. on Saturday evening. So if it's, and that's even if it's an abandoned game or even washed out. So that needs to be added. The scorecard needs to be completed by 5 p.m. on Tuesday after the game. This is different to other seasons where we've allowed this to be put in by Thursday. The main reason for this is that we would like to publish a team of the week, and we're going to have an overall team of the week from the best performances, and then also a tier Division 1 to 3, Tier 4 and 5, and Tier 6 and 8 teams. So Gary needs some time to publish that. The away team captain needs to complete a ground standard report by 9 p.m. on Thursday night. We need you to be fair and honest on your opinion. It gives our ground facilities team an opportunity to read those reports, and obviously if there's a recurring theme at certain places, then we can go and investigate. Both captains need to mark the umpire by 9 p.m. on Thursday after the game. For new captains, Gary's set up a dummy website so that you can practice loading scorecards up, and he's going to send a link out.
Yeah, the link will be on the homepage of the website to replace the Zoom links we've used this evening, later on this evening, or you can email me. Essentially, there's a dummy website which we use for testing, has the same functionality, but if you put a result in, it won't appear on the main website. We've just moved the matches for the first 2 weeks of the season to be last weekend and the weekend before, so you can all have a chance to enter a result if you need to, and a scorecard, and all the other forms. Actually, they will all be able to be entered notionally for the first 2 weeks of the season as practice. If you have any issues, then please let me know as soon as you find them, or if you're not sure what to do.
So I would advise you to read all the rules and regulations. They're available on the website under the admin tab. Ignorance isn't a defence. Captains are responsible for setting the tone on the pitch during the match and should behave accordingly and within the spirit of the game. You're the responsible people for your team throughout the match. On that note, we'll open it up to any questions. If you want to put questions in the chat, we can answer those. Umpires.
Yeah. Okay. Umpires, just for a change. Cash or bank transfer? Well, Yeah, we hear where you're coming from. We are for this season in particular. We'll leave it at the umpire's discretion. However, that doesn't mean you can't do a bank transfer. Feel free to contact your umpire before the game. Say to him, "We'd like to do the fee by bank transfer. Is that okay?" If he says yes, then crack on. No issues for us. If he says no,
we'd also expect the bank transfer to be transferred before the game.
Yeah, it should be before the game. At absolute latest, it has to be transferred by 12 noon on Sunday following the game. And if it's reported to us that it's not, there will be an automatic points deduction. Okay, so have a look at the weather forecast. If it's not in any doubt that the game's going to go ahead, get the bank transfer done beforehand if the umpire's amenable to it. If the umpire says, no, I would prefer cash for this season at least, we would ask you to adhere to that request, please. We'll work on this over something we'll look at across the course of the season. It's been suggested to me on email today, actually, that we should get all the money sent in to us and then redistribute it. That is a tax nightmare for the umpires and for us, because we then become employers and we can't open ourselves up to that. We'd have all sorts of liabilities and things that we have to do. So cash or bank transfer is fine. If you can make an arrangement with the umpire and he's happy for a bank transfer, please go ahead. There's no requirement for it to be cash unless the umpire says, no, I would really rather have a brown envelope, please.
Okay, while we're waiting for more questions, I'll talk about the scoring a little bit. This applies to everybody, but actually applies more to the older Chilwell teams. Your laptop will only work this year if you load the 2021 database onto it. Those ex-OCA teams who've been given a laptop, it's already there, although you'll need to update players. But for Chilwell teams, your laptop you used last year will need a new database. Primarily, of course, because we've got a whole load more clubs and teams in there. So you'll know if you've loaded the right one, because the new teams will all appear and they won't be in your 2020 version. The new database is in two places. It's in the Dropbox folder on every single laptop. And there's also a link from the scorers page on the website where you can save as and copy it in. You need to do that sooner rather than later. Because if you come back to me on the 8th of May and say my result won't load, it'll be because you've probably got the wrong database. You'll also need to update player files each week, as in previous seasons. And particularly for the database that are ready, we're still waiting for some registrations from some clubs. So you will need a new player file before you start the season. If any of you turn your laptop on for the first time since last September, and you try and run TCS and it says error cannot download empty document, just reboot your laptop. And for whatever reason known to nobody, that fixes it. I've had a number of laptops here and that came up. You reboot them and it will be fine. And the player file will go in Dropbox as per last year, but also be on the website this year as well. So particularly Chilwell clubs, you do need to update your database. Last year, lots of teams didn't, and it means your file won't load. And other reasons for your match file from the scoring app not loading is that you've put the home and away teams in the wrong way around, or you've got the date wrong. There's all of those things obviously are checks that you are loading the right result. So for those who haven't done it before, you essentially score using the laptop if you want to, and you then export the match file, and then a single load of that match file will do your results and your scorecard all in one go. The only exception to that is if your match has been decided by DLS, don't enter the result directly from the match file. Enter the result manually, and you can then use the TCS file to load your scorecard. So the bulk of the work is still done for you, but TCS won't recognise your DLS result because the two things are not connected. But please check that you've got the right database, and ideally before next Friday as well.
Say as well, as most of you have probably not picked up your laptop since August, you might want to charge it. Don't turn up at the first match and not be able to plug it in.
You might want to charge it. You might want to run Windows updates, which could take. I had some here, and the Windows updates took about 2 hours because obviously it hadn't been turned on since September. And so you do need to load the new database, which doesn't take any time, but you need to have done it before you turn up in case you need to download it from somebody and don't have internet access when you arrive at a ground.
Okay, question in the chat. Which umpire do we contact? Home left and away right?
So we're going to identify which is assigned to which club.
Where two umpires appear, which they will do for all the Division 1s, 3 games at least, the home umpire is the one on the left and the away umpire is the one on the right. But there'll be a bit of clarification on that for the lower divisions coming later this week. If you're the home team and your game is called off, you need to contact both umpires to say don't turn up, because if they turn up, you have to pay them. But if in terms of paying, the home team pays the one on the left and the away team pays the one on the right, would be the right way to do it.
Does that answer your question, Tim? Okay, thanks.
Okay, and we're done by the looks of it.
I'll add one more bit, which we talked about in the previous group. We've added a new option, partly the request of some of those ex-OCA clubs. You get the ability now as a separate entry to put a relatively brief match report in if you want to. It's not mandatory, there's no cut-off date for it, and both sides can enter a match report if they want to. So under the Submit Forms menu, there's a match report option. They will be reviewed before they're published. So if you put one in, don't email me or anybody else saying, well, why has my match report not appeared? They will be reviewed by one of the committee on a voluntary basis as soon as we can, just to make sure there's nothing defamatory or otherwise in there. And if that's the case, we won't edit it or censor it, we just won't publish it. So if you write a nice report, whether you've won or lost or anything else, they will appear on the archive page. But if you put in there, umpire was whatever, or opposition captain did this, that, and the other, it simply won't appear. And that'll be the end of that. But both teams can do a report if they want to, but it's completely optional. And it's just a bit of fun if people want to just expand on the game they've had.
Is using a laptop mandatory or optional in Tier 4?
Optional. We would prefer you to use them, and actually, if you've got somebody who will use it, you won't have to put your scorecard in by hand, which takes 10 minutes or so, whereas it will all load in one go. But it is optional. If you're the home team, however, you will need the laptop at the game, because the DLS app is also on that laptop, and as the home team, you're responsible for doing providing the means of a DLS calculation. So even if you're not scoring with a laptop, you will need it at all your home games. We'd encourage you to use the laptop because at the end of the day, it's much quicker, but I appreciate some people, particularly older scorers, don't necessarily want to engage with more technology, but actually it's an incredibly rapid way of getting your result and scorecard onto the website immediately the game's finished, in fact.
Are umpiring appointments available in a downloadable format like a spreadsheet so it can be shared?
They probably could be. Leave that one with me.
So ask that again in 48 hours and the answer will be yes, probably. That's all I've got on the chat at the moment.
Yeah, just be clear for the new teams, the home team has to put the result in. If your game is, and it's unlikely to happen in your tiers, if your game is forfeited by one team or the other, you can put the result in on the Friday if you so wish. But in the rules state you can't call a game off for weather-related reasons until the day of the game, until the Saturday. Again, every team or every club has 2 players in their player list that they don't see typically, a Mr. Not Known and a Mr. Not Present. So if you don't know the name of somebody because you can't read the handwriting in the scorebook or anything else, put them in as not known. In the event of there only being 10 men in one of the sides, then not present should be used. We will chase down all the not knowns during the week once that scorecard's gone in. So we do get 11 names and all the players into the scorecard as soon as we can. We'll chase them down. But if you can't read it, and particularly if your game is rained off, please make sure you've got, as a home team, all the opposition's team. What typically happens when it rains after 5 overs is you go home and you open the scorebook and you've got 2 batsmen, one who's not out 3 and one who's not out 5, and two bowlers, one who's bowled 3 overs and one who's bowled 2. So you've got 4 names where you need 22, and that does require quite a lot of chasing. So please make sure as the home team, when the opposition leave, you've got 22 names in your scorebook. TCS will expect you to put the teams in anyway, but if you're using a book, that you have 22 names.
Just a quick word on COVID variations. Dave touched on it in the intro. We are not planning to rewrite the league rules because of the COVID variations. What we are going to do is put a rider over the top. So, for example, currently you can be subject to penalty runs if your overrate is too slow, etc. We will suspend that and a number of other things. It's not going to be a lot. There's 4 or 5 things likely to be on this list. We haven't published it yet because if Boris sneezes twice tomorrow, the rules might change. So we're going to leave it probably until the early part of next week. But it will be at the top of the rules page, and it will supersede anything written below in the general rules or in the format rules. These are purely amendments to the Cherwell League rules because of COVID. You should not interpret this as our interpretation of ECB guidance. You are responsible for following all ECB guidance. We are not responsible for enforcing it. You are responsible for doing it. But where the rules need to be tweaked to allow, for example, more time for sanitation breaks, etc., we'll produce a list of relaxations and suspensions where necessary, and you should have that to hand. You should also keep an eye on that, because if the government rules change and then the ECB guidance changes, then our rules may change also. All of this stuff gets sent to your club secretary on a fairly regular basis. You can yourself access everything that's sent to the club secretaries by going on to the minutes page on the website, which is available to everyone. And if you seek out the documents that are marked from the secretary's desk, that will give you all the updates that have been sent out to the secretary. So if you've lost it, not seen it, don't remember it, it's there. Who will call the game off before the umpires turn up? Well, that's rules of cricket. The ground executive are responsible for the ground until they hand it to the umpires. So as the home team, if you believe that the pitch is not playable, then it's your job to inform the umpires, inform the opposition, tell them the game's cancelled. With football overlapping with cricket, what allowances are in place for late arrival of players? Absolutely none. That is your responsibility. Get your players there on time. If they play football in the morning, cricket in the afternoon, that's your problem, not ours. We have said, however, that if you are sharing facilities with football, we will consider a little bit of flexibility on start times in order to allow both games to take place. We will not, however, authorise a game to be moved by a full day. 1 hour is the maximum that we're offering. Ain't our fault football season is overrunning, and for the vast majority of you who share facilities, you have an arrangement where cricket takes priority from May to August and football takes priority from September to April. Exercise your authority. They have to work around you, not the other way around.
Opposition captain.
Opposition captain.
Yeah. Visiting club umpire. Don't you agree?
If you don't tell your panel umpires you've called the game off before they turn up, you'll have to pay them when they do turn up.
Yeah.
If the away team has a club umpire, and there's the home team tells the away team captain, you should ask the away team captain to tell his club umpire that the game is off.
Right. Sorry, I hadn't got to the bottom of that question.
Yeah.
Before you answered it. Yeah. So if it's, to be clear, if it's 2 panel umpires, it is the home team's responsibility to inform both. If it's a club umpire, and you will know if it's 2 panel umpires because they will be appointed and shown on the website. If it's a club umpire that's coming with you, then you absolve that responsibility to the opposition captain.
And if you hover over the umpire's name on your fixture, it will give you his mobile phone number. So there's no logging in required or anything else. You can contact him very, very quickly just by looking at your fixture and hovering over the umpire's name.
What time does the toss take place? Is there a minimum number of players who have to be present? That's an interesting question. Tiers 1 to 5. The toss takes place at least 15 minutes before the start of play, I believe, which is as written in the rules. If there is no one there from the visiting side, unlikely but the home side, at the time of the toss, then the opposition can claim the toss. There are further rules about what happens if they're not there in time for the start of the game. A game can't start unless both teams have a minimum of 9 players. And for most of you, because you're tiers 1 to 5, as not the lowest team in your club, there are slightly more arduous restrictions on you. So depending on which team you are within the club, as a first team in a club with more than one team, you should have 11, unless there are significant extenuating circumstances.
And the same applies in terms of if you can't get to, if you're a club with 2 teams and you can't get 2 teams out, your first team has to play, regardless of who those players are.
Yeah. Is there a captain's / umpires debrief meeting after the game? I'll give this one straight to Nielsen, I think.
It's no longer mandatory. Anybody, any of the 4, the captains or the umpires, can request one, and the umpires will definitely request one if they're going to report somebody. I'm sure that behaviour is going to be wonderful and there's been no reason for that, but those are the rules. I mean, personally, I like them. It's a great chance to just exchange views on how things went, good or bad, and I would encourage it, but it's not a requirement.
Will away scorers be required after the 21st of June? Honest answer, don't know.
Probably.
Probably.
Or maybe.
But yeah, or maybe not.
Perhaps.
The basic stance we took all the way through last year, and the one that we've taken this year, is to plan early is to plan twice. Until we know for sure that on the 21st of June all contact restrictions are going to be lifted, we're not going to make any announcement. Better, I think, to carry on as we are for one additional week if necessary, until we know exactly what the situation is. We will react as quickly as we possibly can, but we will be guided purely by ECB guidance. Is there a cap on how many games a player in lower division can play in a higher division before he cannot play in the lower side again? From weeks 1 to 16, no, you can play any player in any team whenever you like. There are restrictions on players in weeks 17 and 18, and the details of all this are laid out in the rules. Basically, what it comes down to, a player can't play down unless he's played 2 games in that team during weeks 1 to 12. But rather than me trying to explain it and you try and remember it, I would just point you to the rules on this. They're fairly straightforward. But from weeks 1 to 16, no, you can play any player anywhere.
And I think that there's been some confusion over registrations earlier about our fault. Typically, we charge pre-season for those in tiers 1 to 5 as it is now, and not for the 6, 7 and 8. Because everybody is currently free, everybody who's been registered pre-season is available to play in any division. When you get into the season and you want to add new players, because somebody wanders along to Nets one day in June, you can choose to pay the small fee by PayPal and add them to your 1 to 5 list, or you can add them for free to your 6 to 8 list. And at any point, you can then choose, actually, they're better than I thought they were, and move them up by paying the appropriate fee. So that sort of distinction will apply for anybody registered after the pre-season date ends this week. But so far, everybody who's been registered can play wherever you choose to play them.
Yeah, if you're registered in the 1 to 5 list, that does not restrict you to 1 to 5. That means you can play in 1 to 5, or you can play in 6, 7, and 8. So 1 to 5 actually means you can play in any division. If you're registered for divisions 6 to 8 only, you can only play in 6 to 8 until you're moved up to 1 to 5. Do we need to register this season for players already registered last season?
No, everybody who was in the list, unless you've taken them out of your list, will still be in there. We haven't done any manipulation to it at all, other than remove the need for them to be paid for.
If any of you have not yet put in your registration lists, and there were,
There are. I will
about 6.
I will tell you exactly. So I had another one this afternoon. There are. We'll shame them, shall we? Fire loads. Coombe, Oxenford, Sunningwell, and Watlington are the 4 where we're still waiting, who currently have no players registered at all. I spoke to Owen earlier today, and they're coming to me tomorrow. Spoke to Tim yesterday, and they're coming tomorrow. I'm led to believe. So Coombe and Sunningwell, we have no registrations from those 2 teams yet. If you have sent them, we've missed them. Apologies. If you just send them again, we will load them. If not, you need to get them to us.
Yeah, basically, normally it's the captain's meeting is the deadline. In this instance, it's the 30th of April. So you've got until Friday to get the list to us. If you don't have it by Friday, then A, the bulk load disappears. So you're going to have to put them in one by one. And B, it's going to cost you £2 a player. If you haven't done it by 12:30 on the 8th of March, it's going to cost you the game because you're going to be playing with 11 unregistered players, which is 11 more than you're allowed to.
8th of May.
8th of May, yeah, sorry, March, that would have, yeah.
That's everybody.
Yeah.
Just to go back a step on spare balls. For the OCA clubs that didn't use Hampton balls last year, the spare balls need to be the best spare balls that you have until you have enough Buckingham balls to fill that box.
Sorry if a stupid question. Don't give us an open goal like that. When looking at the fixtures on website, if it shows one umpire, what happens for the second? If it shows one umpire, then that umpire has either been entered by the club as a club umpire or appointed as a panel umpire. If there's a gap on the second umpire, the club where that gap, or the club associated to that gap, either has to bring a club umpire with them, in which case no penalties, or turns up without an umpire and is subject to a 5-point deduction. Now at that point, the umpire who stands the whole game will stand at the bowler's end throughout, and rather than the 45 quid that he was going to pick up, is actually going to pick up 60 quid, which will be 30 from each team. So the team that did supply an umpire to the panel or club umpire will get their fee reduced by 15 quid, and the other opposition will still have to chip in 30.
Also, if there's no panel umpires appointed and only one club umpire turns up, then the opposition are obliged to provide a £15 donation to that umpire.
30 quid in this tier, isn't it?
No, if it's a
club. If it's a
club umpire,
yeah.
then it's still 15.
All this stuff is written in the rules. It does take a little bit of reading, but if you go through it carefully, it will A, get you off to sleep, and B, give you a slightly better understanding of what you need to do and what you might have to do. Okay, any more for any more? Looks like we're there, I think. As I said at the beginning, we've recorded the meeting, so I will endeavour to get this up and available for you in the next couple of days. So you can go back over it if necessary, or show it to the whole team if necessary, so everyone's aware of what's going on. It should definitely be watched in conjunction with reading the rules. I know we keep banging on about this, but it would be a novel day when every captain had read and understood all the rules. and a very quiet season for us.
Yeah, so we need to follow the ECB guidelines on COVID. I'll reiterate that. I would advise you to have the sanitizer next to the stumps or down a hole in the edge of the square to save some time.
And just to be clear, the sanitisation break is not a drinks break. It's not a team talk time. It's not a chance to upset the batsman's rhythm or anything else. It needs to take place as quickly as possible, ideally as players are moving from one end of their, from one over to the next.
Can I just butt in about this leaving the sanitizer behind the stumps? That's absolutely fine. And as an umpire, they will be told if the ball happens to hit the sanitizer, that's just like it's part of the game. No penalties, doesn't become dead ball, etc. However, some bowlers have got in the habit of putting their cap down behind the stumps or something like that. That's not the case. If they do that, they run the risk of the ball hitting it, and then it's 5 penalty runs. So the sanitizer is part of the pitch, but clothing is not. You need to dispose of it somewhere else.
Yes, Mr. Pryor says sanitising breaks are splash and dash.
It's sponsored by Brute.
Okay, we're getting into a very low-level comedy club now, so I'm going to call this closed unless anyone has anything else they want to put in the chat. 1-1 Chelsea Madrid. Thanks for that. As I said, the recording will be up the next couple of days. If you think of a question as soon as we end the meeting, by all means, stick it on the email to the secretary account and we'll do our best to answer it. And that will just about do it. Unless anyone's got anything else. I will. Okay, I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes just to leave the meeting, and just in case you've got anything else, and then after that, I will end the meeting for all. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Enjoy.
Thanks for your time, gentlemen. Have a good season.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye.
Gary, does my message make sense?
I don't know, but your appointments pop up when I click on your name on the umpires list.
That's interesting. So they're all mine. By the computer.
It's Brian, because you're IT illiterate.
I hate to tell you this, Dave, but I was in charge of IT for several years when I was in school.
When you were at school?
IT probably meant something different then.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when I taught at school.
Oh, right, okay. Not when you were a pupil.
Yeah.
No, they
Didn't have enough space to have the computers when he was at school.
actually hadn't invented the punch cards when I was at school. That was for at university though. The computer was a building, and you went in the building with your punch cards and left them there, and half an hour later you came back and you'd done a spelling mistake on the 3rd card and the whole thing hadn't run.
Yeah, I've seen one of the first computers at Bell Labs in New Jersey, and it is about 8 foot tall and about 15 foot wide, and it's just a panel about, I don't know, about 8 inches deep, just hardwired. So all the code is hardwired. That's where you get your bugs from, because they used to fly into the and short things out. So we're all done, gentlemen.
Gary, when I log in,
Brian, I think are you saying when you're logged in you don't see them?
yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll be looking at the ones that are published. I will have a look at that. That's another one of those I couldn't test until we had some umpire appointments, which Nielsen has now done these last few days. So I will have a look at that, and it'll be fixed probably before Chelsea have lost tonight.
Because I've got half panel and half club umpire list.
No, they should all
the
appear.
divisions to find them.
No, they should all appear. will fix that in a moment.
That's lovely.
If you click on the if you're not logged in, when you click on your name in the
Okay.
umpires list, they do appear. I checked that earlier, but I'll fix this other one shortly.
Okay.
And actually, Nielsen, you're still there.
Yeah.
Somebody asked whether they wanted umpire downloads. Do we need, if that's working, is that a player or an umpire who wanted that downloaded?
That
you know?
was
Tim Hamp, it wasn't. He's not.
Tim
not
Hamp
an
at
umpire, is he?
Oxenford. No.
Yeah,
No.
I've got his email. I'll email him to find out what he wants that for on the basis of. I can see why an umpire might want to download their appointments. That'd be quite handy for them potentially, but I don't see why a team necessarily. But unless it's for his club umpire, I'll email them separately and get the answer to that.
Gary, I think it might be a bit like us. I think Oxenford have got a few club umpires, so it's quite useful just to distribute it. And one of our
No, that's fine. That makes more sense than trying to download Nielsen's appointments by somebody else. That suggests they're stalking you, rather.
I know it's something that our umpire asked for today. So so I think you might get asked, but that tomorrow as well. But
I'll do that, but I'll probably restrict that therefore to if you're logged in to that club, you can download your club umpire's appointments. That's the logical place for that.
Yeah, that's the way it worked on the OCA one. It was behind the sort of paywall kind of thing.
That does make sense. I can get that, and then as a club, you can see where your umpires are going or been appointed. Yeah, okay.
While we're on the Oxenford theme, I spoke to Ian earlier about this. So Tim actually sent me a message yesterday, seeing if we could move our area